Norm Smith, obviously from Mass Audubon, Trailside Museum down at the Blue Hills, and we've been doing this together since the beginning. Peregrine falcons were gone, not only from Massachusetts, but the whole eastern U.S. from DDT, the pesticide, by 1968. None. They were all gone. Our last one in Massachusetts was 1955. And so when the state established a Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, basically an endangered species program in 1984, the first project we started was to restore peregrine falcons. And so we released some captive born babies down at Post Office Square, which isn't that far away. And that resulted in their having a nest in the custom house, which we still do. We just banded them about a week ago. And that nest has been the most productive nest in the entire eastern United States, partly because it's completely inside the building. They come through a window and they have a box inside, literally inside the building. So it's completely protected from the weather. So DDT isn't being used anymore. The environment is really taking a long time, but it's cleaned up. And so the eggshells are thick and hard. DDT made them thin and they would break the eggs. They couldn't hatch young. And so recovery has been wonderful. So we now are up to around maybe 32 nesting pairs in Massachusetts alone. And they're still pumping out babies. 4 is this typical full clutch of eggs. And right now we have 3 nice big chicks. So we're going to band them. And banding, we do this because it allows us to follow them from birth to death. We then know what kind of accidents they have, if they're treated for an injury and released, do they get injured again, or they recover, where do they go to finally set up shop and nest and have their young, who do they mate with, how long do they live, where do they go basically to is the main sort of surprise. We find them nesting from here in Boston, Atlantic City, New Jersey on a casino building, Verrazano Narrows Bridge, Throgs Neck Bridge in New York City, downtown Manhattan, one of the big churches in the Bronx, Manchester, New Hampshire, Albany, New York, and we get their birds as well that come here. So there's a regional population, not just us. This is paralleling the bald eagle recovery. We had no bald eagles from 1905 until 1987 or 8. And now we're up to about 50 nesting pairs of bald eagles. The closest one is in Waltham on the Charles River. So they're getting really close to the city now. And that pair is their chicks are being banded right now. As we're banding these, we have other staff who are banding those eagle chicks right now in Waltham. As I say, we're going to band them. We have to be really careful because males are smaller than females. So if I put a small male band on a young female, she's going to grow up and this is going to be too tight.
That's pretty big.
Well, anything I have to say after this is sort of irrelevant. So, band. So we have, this band is called a field readable band, black over green, that indicates this bird is banded in the eastern United States as opposed to eastern Canada or Greenland. Those birds migrate right through here. We get Greenland birds with red bands. So this tells us right away it's eastern U.S. It's 11 over BE printed 3 times around the band. So a bird watcher with a good camera or a spotting scope, or an office worker with a window and a ledge can read this and tell us where this bird is. The other band is from the Federal Banding Lab, and it has about 9 numbers on it. Every bird has a unique number, but you can really only read them if you have the bird in the hand. Either you've caught it, or it's injured, or it's dead. So we only get one good report oftentimes on that band. So I use rivets, and this one over here is called a lock-on band, where it's got a piece of aluminum sticking up and another folds over with pliers, because when they get older, they tear it off. So this is going to be like a bracelet for the bird's entire life. And it's no different than wearing jewelry. It's exactly what it is jewelry. As long, I've got to be real careful that it fits right. As long as it fits right, it's no different than wearing a wristwatch for the rest of his life.
Can you see?
All right, let's be sure to get the numbers. It's all well and good to put these on there, but if you don't write the numbers down, it's help a lot. Sex ratios are about even, but sometimes we get 4 females or 4 males, but it all works out in the end. So over all the years where we've banded in lots of different places, it is about even, about the same number of males and females. Now, people often worry, we touched them, will mom take them back? She absolutely does not care, particularly with a bird of prey, a hawk or an owl or a falcon. They are so aggressive, they own not just the nest, the territory. So I could bring in a baby owl and put it in their nest, and they wouldn't blink an eye. They accept it, feed it, raise it. It's in their nest, they own it, it's theirs. So, this is a little male, smaller bird. I have to use a smaller band. And you can see the feathers are just starting to come in, the flight feathers. So this bird's, that thing, and it will be flying at 7 weeks. So we're about roughly 3 weeks away. Know, when they do that first flight, they're not very good at landing. They know how to, and they won't fly up. They always fly from the high spot down, and you hope they find something to perch on before they're on the ground. Because if they're on the ground, they may want to stay down there a day or two. And that doesn't work very well in a city. We've had, unfortunately, we have had birds killed by being run over by a car. We have had one bird killed by being run over by a bicycle messenger. So being on the street is not a good thing. So the risk of their dying from some mishap is the highest literally within their first 3 days after they've left the nest. If they can get past those first 3 days, they're in pretty good shape. They live, the oldest one I'm aware of from banding was 19 and a half years. Usually, if we get a 10-year-old, that's a good old bird. That's a good standard old successful bird. We had the male in the custom house that lived 19 years. So half a year less than that. So mom is the nest defender. She's the aggressive one. Dad is the hunter. He's the provider. So up there, when we went up to get these sticks, Mother was right in our face. She was standing on the ledge. She wasn't aggressive enough that we could catch her. Because she's not banded. Bobby's banded, and Mom's not. And if I could have caught the mom, I would have banded her too. In fact, I would have brought her down, except I would have been real nervous about her getting loose. This wouldn't have been a great place to have her out in the open, just because of the possibility of mistake. But she's the one that's there trying to get me to leave. And people say, well, doesn't it upset them? Well, it makes her angry, that's for sure. It makes them aggressive. But with the ones that are so aggressive they come at me, we'll catch the mom because she's just all over us. We can't get rid of her and put her in a bag that has a zipper on it. And then when we're finished with the chicks, we turn her loose. And you'd think that they would fly off and hide somewhere because of this trauma. You turn them loose, they fly out about 50 feet, roll over, and come right back at you. So they don't ever get any less aggressive. In fact, as they get older, they get a little grumpier because they're even less impressed with us. But it doesn't hurt them.
Oh my God, they're all different.
So, okay, we'll take votes. You've seen a female and a male. Which is this? Male.
Male.
Is that a male?
Female.
Is that a female? I'm looking at her feet and her legs. They're thick. And if I have a question, this band is easy to bend. I just put it on her leg and bend it over and just see how it feels. This is a big female. Second female. So we have 2 females and a male. 2 girls and a boy. One of the things we also look at occasionally is, do they have parasites? And oftentimes, let's see if I can get it. I'll open her wing up and look in her armpits. And frankly, this is the first one I've looked at all year that didn't have feather lice walking around down there. But they don't feed on blood. They don't suck like a tick or a sucking line. So it doesn't hurt them. I don't do anything about it. She's fighting. Not a problem. I'm worried more about the feet. That's what's going to hurt. Although, if that was mother, I wouldn't like to be bit either. She can hurt. So, I do this with Peregrine Falcons and bald eagles because they're rare, we're trying to restore them. Norm actually bans a lot more hawks and owls than we do. He's got a raptor banding station, he bans his nests, which climbs trees. So we get a lot of interesting information. In fact, the thing that Norm does is so really cool. He puts modern technology, satellite transmitters on snowy owls from Logan Airport. It finds the snowy owls going where?
All the way to the Arctic Circle. We had one bird in 9 months that traveled 7,426 miles. And with the new transmitter, it tells us what speed it's flying at, what elevation it's flying at, what direction it's flying at, the bird's body temperature. It's amazing the data that we actually get. Historically, people thought that snowy owl came to New England because it was so cool up north. They came down here, they stopped it, and then they made it back north. And we proved they make it back to the Arctic, and they are vibrant breeders. Who knows what the fastest animal in the world is? Peregrine Falcon. Everybody thinks it's a cheetah. Cheetah can travel about 78 miles an hour. They've been documented. How fast can a peregrine fly?
Over 200 miles an hour.
That's right. 222 miles an hour.
In a stoop, over 200 miles an hour.
The pigeons don't have it.
Oh, she's gonna come around. Let me just step into the shade here.
Why are they here? Peregrine falcons don't make any nest whatsoever. They don't bring a stick. They don't bring anything. They're cliff nesters. So they're in the mountains nesting on cliffs. And on the ledges, to make a compression, a little wall of sand, dirt, and gravel. And now that we have big tall structures that are man-made, they like to use tall structures like cliffs. Problem is that it's hard to find somewhere that's soft enough, so they often nest on a nest of pigeon, where pigeons droppings is accumulated. But all they need is a high spotty nest, which the city gives them, and flying birds. And so there's always birds flying over the city, especially near water. When they're nesting, when they're raising young, we still have birds that are migrating in the daytime. We have a lot of our birds migrating at night. Some in the daytime, like robins and red-winged blackbirds and grackles migrate in the daytime. Blue jays, some blue jays migrate. If they're flying over Boston Harbor or flying over the Charles River, they are city ducks. They got nowhere to go. This bird is faster than they are. And so, especially over the water, blue jays.
If you can say peregrines are
nowhere
cute.
to hide. Yes. And so, the
It's
kinds
the
of
down.
food we have. So right here are some of the examples of food items we picked out. And these are from pigeon, but these are not your pigeons out here on the plaza, because these birds are so fast, they don't come down near the ground. If a pigeon takes off and veers, this falcon can't make turns like that. It'll hit the building on the other side. So these are birds flying high over the city, going out to the Tobin River Bridge to nest, or nesting up high on another building. But these are local, and that's why we have pieces of corn in this nest, because the pigeon came in with corn in his crop, and the peregrine tore it apart, and all the pigeon's food is being spread out. We're seeing millet, birdseed basically. This is mourning dove, so related to pigeon, very fast flying bird. And it lives around the city, but not as often. Starling, these are starlings, they're right here, really abundant. Lots and lots of house sparrows, really small bird, but really common in the city. But then we have, here's a leg, two wing feathers from a thrush. This is a forest bird, but it's a daytime migrant and a nighttime migrant. So this is a bird migrating. It doesn't live in Boston at all. And in fact, there's some birds we wish they wouldn't eat so much because we really like them. Here are tail feathers from a Baltimore oriole. Baltimore orioles don't live here in the city. They live out on the Charles and up in the green spaces we have, but not here in the city. So this is another migrant. And then here's some really nice red body feathers from a scarlet tanager. Beautiful scarlet red bird with black wings. Again, a migrant. It lives in the forest. It's not here. When the birds eat something, they tear it apart in pieces. They swallow the feathers. They pluck these big feathers out. That's why they're scattered all over the nest. They just pull them out. But all the body feathers get consumed and all the bones. And when they're finished, they poop, but they also regurgitate pellets. All these feathers that they take to the chest, they spit them up like owls do. So you get the pellets. I can figure out what they've eaten by looking at the pellets or the feathers. So we have a huge variety. Some of them have a personality. Some females will really have a knack for getting pigeons, whereas another one has a knack for getting starlings. And so sometimes by looking at the food, you can see when there's been a change in the females. One of them, because of personality change. Suddenly there's no pigeons in the nest, it's all starlings or woodcock. So it's been fascinating to follow, but this is one of those real success stories. They've come back. It would have been a lot easier to prevent it in the first place if we'd understood DDT, but it's taken 30 plus years, almost 40 years to fix all this.
So why do you study these birds? Because they indicators of the environment. So these guys are the monitors of what's happening out there. So if we study peregrine falcons or these birds, we can tell what's happening in the environment, because ultimately, whatever affects these birds is going to affect us in the long run. So these birds are the indicators. Kind of like the canary in the gold mine. If that canary dies, you're going to get the heck out because there's no oxygen in there. And with peregrines, if we notice a decline in these birds, they shoot that aren't hatching, there's going to be something wrong, and hopefully we can figure it out and do something about it so it doesn't affect us.
They really are cool. Hopefully these birds will never be touched by a human hand again. They'll be on their own.